So in the last session, we completed these setups. These are the remaining setups as a part of payables basic setups. If you can complete all these setups, system will allow us to create invoice and payment. And there are many concepts as a part of payables. When we work on all these concepts, many concepts require additional configuration that we will discuss and do it. Okay. Now, so we'll go in the sequence. Along with that, let's pick one topic called as bank accounts. If you want to create the bank accounts, you have to allow this user to have access to our legal entity. When you create the bank account owner you have to select as a legal entity. When you say bank account, the bank account should be owned by company. Your company we are representing with a legal entity with a registration. So if you assign the bank account to as a legal entity to the user specific cash management role, the synchronization, it will take some time. So that is the reason we'll go and complete that setup and we'll continue with the same series of setups. By the time we complete all these setups, that would be ready to support with required synchronization. So here what we are going to do is, before you create the bank account, you assign cash manager role to user. This is the one point. The other point is, to this role, assign our legal entity. Assign LE to cash manager role. First, we'll go and complete these two steps. Along with that, we have to submit the LDAP job. For synchronization, we'll complete these three setups so that system will update the synchronization so that we can follow the same sequence without any waiting.
One quick question, Lakshman. So whenever we
go on mute, please go on mute. I'm clearly mentioning, please go on mute. This is second time.
I have question, Lakshman.
Okay, question you have, please.
So whenever we assign any role to any user, we need to execute that job synchronization, the role synchronization process, is it?
Yes, for everything not required. So if you assign something to the role, it is required. Say in GL, we assign primer ledger to GL roles, then this LDAP is required. To cash manager, we are assigning legal entity. That is the reason LDAP is required. If you remember, we assigned application implementation consultant and IT security manager roles. Have we run this LDAP?
No, that's why I had question. I mean, for which kind of jobs we need job synchronization?
If you are assigning something to the role, then it is required.
Okay, got it.
It may be your primary ledger, it could be your legal entity, or it might be your business unit. Then only this LDAP is required. Otherwise, so we don't need to run this. Yeah. First, we'll go and complete these three setups, then we'll follow the sequence on. So we can follow the sequence, but when you complete this, it won't allow us to create the bank account immediately. The synchronization process itself, it takes time. Okay. So to bypass that waiting time, we are trying to complete now itself. Then system will start working on the synchronization. Then we can proceed with the setups. Yeah. So we'll complete these three steps, then we'll follow the sequence. Go to our user. Security console. Digital is our username. edit, add role. What is the role name? Cash manager. So this role primarily we require to have access to cash management application functionality. Okay, with this role only we can do the bank statement reconciliations. But so earlier in the even few months ago, till few months ago, like it was okay. Even if you don't do this assignment, still you will be able to create the bank account by selecting your legal entity. Because of the latest patch applications, it became mandatory. Cash manager, and make sure that you are selecting the role which is starting ORA as a prefix in role code. It's again very important. Here, if you search for cash manager, you have two roles. Don't select first one, it doesn't support. Select only second one, which is starting role code as a ORA as a prefix. Select, assign. Done. Now click on save and close. Click on done. To the same role, we need to assign our legal entity. So whatever the legal entity we are going to assign, that legal entity can act as a bank account owner. So what is the task we have to use to assign legal entity or primary ledger to any role? Data access for users. In GL, we used data access for users to assign primary ledger to GL roles. The same task we can use here also. Data access for users. Search. Select this task. Click on add. And username. Same. Digital. Select role. The role is cash manager. Security contest. What do you want to assign to this role? Legal entity. And here you can select the legal entity name. Our legal entity name is digital US legal entity. So save and close. Done. Again, click on done. And here is the task to trigger LDAP job. Click on run user and role synchronization. Here is the job. Retrieve latest LDAP changes. Click on submit. Say okay. So it takes time. It takes time and it will complete the synchronization. Okay. We completed the 3 tasks. Why we are completing in advance? These 3 tasks we have to create the bank account. But when you just complete and if you go to bank account creation, system will not display the legal entity immediate base. That is the reason in advance we are completing so that everything will be ready for us. Okay. So that's all about this. Done. Now, create procurement agent. Procurement agent nothing but buyer. If you want to create supplier, if you want to create the supplier, only buyer can create the supplier in the system. Only buyer can create. If you are from EBS background, anyone can create the supplier in EBS, but in the Fusion, they set a condition. Only buyer, nothing but procurement agent can create the supplier. That's how they set a rule. If you want to create any user as a buyer, the condition is first, the user should be employee user. The employee user only can create the supplier. And if you want to allow the employee user to create the supplier, you have to classify that employee user as a procurement agent. These are the points we have to notice. You have one user. Will you be able to create supplier from that user? That you can decide based on these points. First point is the user should be a employee user. Okay, you have employee user. Can you create supplier from this? No. that employee user should be a buyer, or you can call as procurement agent. Yes, you have an employee user. Employee user is created as a buyer. Can you create supplier? No. You have to assign supplier manager role to that user. These three are the, kind of points what system will verify, it will validate. If you are trying to create a supplier from any user, system will validate the user is employee user or not. Okay, employee user. The same user is buyer or not. Okay, buyer. The buyer got access to supplier manager role. Yes. If these three are is going to meet the criteria, then you will be able to create the supplier from the same user. This is what you have to understand. As of now, the user what we have as a digital, the user is just employee user. Now we are going to convert, we are going to create the digital as a buyer. After that, we will assign the role and we will see. So create procurement agent, our employee user. You cannot create implementation user as a procurement agent. System doesn't allow. Only employee user you can convert as a procurement agent. Let's see that. So you can go to implementation project, or you can try from the search page. Search for procurement agent. Here is the task. Manage procurement agents. And click on create. Just click on create. And select procurement BU. Search for digital US business unit and select our employee. So digital is our employee name. And you can set default requisition BU. If this agent is going to create the requisition, what business unit should default, that you can set. Again, not mandatory. Now, this procurement agent can perform which activities? These are all activities, all actions can be performed by this procurement agent. But why we are creating the procurement agent? Only for supplier. Here is the supplier also. Ensure at least this supplier checkbox is enabled. But by default, whenever you create the procurement agent, system enables all the actions for this procurement agent. You keep as it is, accept, you don't change it, so that you will be able to create the purchase orders and requisitions from the same procurement agent. If you want to create the requisitions, purchase orders, yes, the user should be a procurement agent. And user should be a procurement agent to create the supplier. Now save and close. Done. What is the next step? Okay. Now assign supplier manager role to user. Go to security console. Okay, go to security console. Go to users. Select digital. Click on edit. Add role. Which role we have to assign? Supplier manager. Supplier manager, select, assign. We no need to assign anything to this role. Not required. This is just to create the supplier. You don't need to assign any BU, or you don't need to assign any legal entity or primary ledger. No need to assign anything. Done. After assigning, submit LDAP job for synchronization. setup and maintenance. And submit this task. So that the supplier manager role what we assign, it will get synchronized. Application implementation consultant, IT security manager, you don't need to run this, but for supplier manager, you have to run. Otherwise, it takes some time for synchronization. To speed up the synchronization, we are submitting this. That's all. Done. Now we have to set up the supplier number. Before you go and create the supplier, you have to set the supplier number. If you don't set any number, it can generate the number from 1. By default, system can start number generation from 1 if you create the supplier. But in the first instance, you can use from 1, or else as per our client preference, you can set the number. When we use these instances for practice purpose, you don't need to set the number. We'll go and see that. You can go to project, or directly you can navigate to search page. You can find the task called as supplier numbering. Here is the task. Specify supplier numbering. Here you can set the number. Whatever the number you set, that number system will follow when you create the supplier. When you practice, please don't change this number. Please don't change this number. Just make a note. By default, system can start number from 1. If you want to set starting number, you can set before creating the suppliers. That system will follow. Always you can set the supplier number, maybe based on your client interest, or else any random number you can set. If they says okay, any number you are okay, then you can set any number, or else your client may says number should start from 3 digits number, or 4 digits number, or 5 digits, 6 digits. That totally depends. If you don't set anything, it will start running the number from 1. That's it. But when you practice, you don't change this. It will create issues. The number what you are changing, updating, that might be used in the system, then it doesn't allow us to create any new supplier. So you don't practice, you don't exercise in changing the number. Just be aware there is a setup to set the supplier numbering. That's all. So that's all about supplier numbering. Now we'll go and create supplier. When you talk about supplier, first we have to create the supplier profile. It's all about giving the supplier name and all. And you can give the supplier address where we have our supplier. For address, we'll give some title that we call as site. Okay, with address, you cannot create any invoice. For address, we have to give some name that we call as site. When you create invoice, we use the site only, not address. Okay, the address will be linked with the site. We use the site name. That means we are selecting address only. For each address, you may give one short name that you can call as site. And that site we have to assign to business unit. Which BU is dealing with that supplier, that we have to set up in the system. This is all about supplier creation. So we assign supplier manager role. If it is synchronized, you will be able to access to supplier creation page. So once the role is synchronized, you can see the section called as a procurement in this navigator. You can see the procurement section. It is not displaying. Better you can sign out and sign in. Just sign out and sign in. You will be able to see that. Fine. Now go to navigator. So within the navigator, you can find procurement section. You just check within the navigator. Do you have anything as a procurement? No. It means the role is not yet synchronized. The role what we assigned as a supplier manager, the role is not synchronized. I have to wait for some time. Let's hope we It is updated. We'll go check once again. I'm just checking the assignment, what we did, that properly saved or not. Yes, we have a supplier manager. Cool. Take some time. Okay, take some time. Right. Let me try once again. Just sign out and sign in. When you sign in, it will create new session. It will fetch all the available updates. Go to navigator. Now you can see procurement. So expand this procurement section and you can see suppliers. You are able to see this procurement and supplier because of supplier manager role, which we assign to this user. Now click on supplier task. Click on supplier task. Now click on task list and click on create supplier. Click on create supplier. When you say supplier, it's all about other organization we are creating as our suppliers. But here for our practice purpose, I'll take prefix as digital only. Okay, when you create supplier, you may create as ABC organization or XYZ organizations or some other names with whom you are dealing. Okay, for our testing purpose, I'm taking here everywhere digital as a prefix, and I'll take supplier as a one, supplier one. When new practice, you may take some different name. So here I'm taking as digital supplier one. Okay, supplier one is the name for our supplier. Digital for our identification purpose, our supplier. So business relationship. If you want to create any transactions with the supplier, select business relationship as a spend authorized. If you create supplier with this relationship prospective, you cannot create any transactions. You cannot create any PO or you cannot create any invoice in payables. So prospective suppliers can be used in the sourcing application for negotiation purpose as a part of procurement. Okay, for us, we need supplier with this relationship so that it will allow us to create the invoices or POs. So tax organization type, this supplier organization type is what type of organization is that you have to select. Say it's a corporation. Now click on create. Based on the supplier name, relationship, tax organization type, it will create the supplier profile and it will generate the supplier number. You could see supplier number, it is triggered. How the supplier created? Through manual process. Just now we created. When it was created? Today, just now. So this is how you can see the supplier profile. Now you have to create address for this supplier. Go to addresses.
Yeah, Lakshman, can you just explain that business relationship once again?
Simple. We discussed as a part of P2P. Okay, there will be sourcing department, right?
Right.
What they do, they'll try to identify the suppliers.
Correct.
First, they identify few suppliers, they'll talk to them, what price they are providing and all, they'll get into the negotiations. Once supplier is finalized, you can start doing the transactions. Till finalization, you have to maintain that supplier as a prospective. Means you are not authorized to do the transactions with the prospect.
Okay.
You always do the transactions. You place the purchase order or you create invoice against approved suppliers. Approved supplier is nothing but here spend authorized supplier.
Okay.
Yeah. So spend authorized means with whom you can do business. That's it.
Lakshman, if for example, while creating the supplier, initially it's not spend authorized. Once they finalize, do we have any setup for the suppliers to convert to spend authorized?
Yes, we have approvals also for that. First, you can create prospect, but that is not our job. If that is our job, we can discuss. That is our sourcing department job. Okay.
Okay.
When we work on the financials, we never bother about that category of suppliers. Okay. So with whom we have to create the invoice? Always with approved supplier only. With approved suppliers only, purchasing department place the purchase orders. We get the material. We have to pay to approved suppliers only. Okay. Prospective suppliers we never deal. That is a job of sourcing department. If you create supplier as a prospective, you cannot create any purchase order or invoice with that supplier. If you want to create purchase order or invoice payment, you have to select business relationship as a spend authorized. Is it clear? No response. Go to addresses. Click on create. So we are going to create address for this supplier, where this supplier is located. Okay, where this supplier is located, we are going to create address. This information you get from your client. Client will provide all their suppliers information. So we are trying to understand how to create the supplier through manual process. Going forward, we'll see how to load the suppliers through spreadsheet. So for testing, I'm giving the name as digital address. The supplier is belongs to which country? Select country. Select country and select postal code so that system can fetch the details. So based on the postal code, it is fetching a city, county, state information. Now, this is our supplier address. Here you can give some address line 1, line 2. Digital New York address. You can write it, optional, but still you can write the detailed information. Now, this is the address where our supplier is located. What purpose we are going to contact our supplier in this address? Say, to place the orders. We send the purchase orders to this address to the supplier, and we send the payment also to this address. The address purpose you can send. If you are going to send your RFQs and bidding purpose also, if you are going to be in touch with the supplier, you can enable this. Okay, you can enable this so that you will be able to create the request for quotations with this address. And if you can send some bidding kind of thing in case of some contracting process. So provide the address details and set address purpose as ordering. Ordering means system will allow you to place the purchase order. Remit to means you will be able to create invoice and payment with this address. Now say save and close. Reality, when you create the purchase order and invoice, you cannot select this address. For this address, you have to give one name. You have to give simple name that you call as a site. Go to sites, click on create, select address. Sometimes what happens is when you do these setups, if you come to sites, you don't see this create icon as enabled. You completed all the setups. Your user is employee user, your user you created as a procurement agent, and you assign supplier manager role. But system is allowing you to create the profile and address, and it is not allowing you to create the site. When you go to sites, this create icon you might see as a disabled, like this pencil icon. So that in that case, what you have to understand is system is not recognizing your user as a buyer. Okay, since you have access to supplier manager, you will be able to access this page. That is okay. But system is not identifying your employee user as a buyer. For that, what you can do is you sign out and sign in. In the same session, if you convert your employee user as a procurement agent, it may not take the updates immediately. For that reason, if you are not able to create the supplier site, even after completing all these setups, even your user is qualified with all these, if you are not able to create the site, just sign out and sign in and try to create the site. You can. Now click on create. Select address. And the same address it is taking as a site name. Okay, you can update how you want. Maybe, okay, New York site. So after giving the site name, okay, you just override the site name, how you want the site address, this address, how you want to keep visible when you create the purchase orders and invoices and payments, okay, as a short name. You can update it, you can just file it, modify that. Now, click on save so that all these tabs will get enabled, and what are the information we need to provide, we can set. Click on save. All these tabs are enabled. And another point is this address level, whatever we enable, those are coming here. Address level we given purchasing or procuring, that is coming as a purchasing here. Ordering we given, ordering we enabled, it is coming as a purchasing. There we given as a remitting. Here it is coming as a pay. Now go to invoicing tab. If you create any invoice with this site, with the New York site, system should take which currency for invoice, that you can set as a default. It should create invoice with US dollar. Payment also US dollars. When you create invoice with this site, what currency it has to take for invoice and payment currencies, that you can set here. And go to payments tab. When you create invoice, system will look for at least one payment method as a default. Set one payment method as a default. Any one of the payment method you can change. When you create invoice, you can change. When you make the payment, you can change. But at least one payment method you have to set as a default for every site. Okay, set. These are the different payment methods. How do you make the payment to supplier? You may select check, but when you are paying, you can change from check to EFT, electronic, or a different payment method you can pay. But while you create the supplier site, set one payment method as a default. I am selecting check and click on this default tick mark. Check. Here it is defaulted. Defaulted. Now, whenever you create invoice with the supplier, site, automatically system will take this payment method as a default. You may process the payment with the same method as a check, or else you may change it. But one you should set as a default. Now go to site assignments. So we created supplier profile and address, and also we created site. The site need to be assigned to our business unit. So click on add. Now you tell me digital, this employee user is acting as procurement agent for how many business units?
Only one.
Only one. Now this site you can assign to only one BU. This digital employee is working as procurement agent for how many BUs? Only to that BU you can assign this site. You click on drop down. Only that BU. If you want to assign this site to another business unit, yes, you can do that. For that, what we have to do? If I want to assign this site to another business unit,
Give access to the user for other business unit.
that's it. Say, for example, I want to assign this site to UK business unit. Now, create procurement agent, same digital, create as a procurement agent for UK, so that the UK BU will be displayed here. So that the same site can be assigned to UK business unit also. This is what we have to understand. Okay, select this business unit. See the name client BU and bill to BU. Client BU means with which BU you create the requisition. Bill to BU means from which business unit you make the payment. In normal scenarios, both are same. There is a concept called as centralized procurement as per procurement. In the centralized procurement, you may create the requisition from one BU. You can create the purchase order from different BU. Finally, you can make the payment from different business unit also. In those scenarios, it is applicable. Otherwise, normally both are same. You create requisition from one BU and you make the payment from the same BU. This is what we have to do as assignment. We assign the site to this business unit, and here you can set default distribution set. Okay, default distribution set. So these are the distribution sets we created. You can select any one of the distribution set here. If I select this distribution set, if I am creating invoice with this site, automatically system will take this distribution set for our invoice creation. We'll see that when you create invoice, we can understand this. Now you can say save and close. Our supplier is ready. Okay, so we created site, and the site we assigned to business unit. And if you want to create the contact for the supplier, you can create here, but not mandatory. Say when you are going to deal with the supplier, who is the point of contact from supplier, that you can create here. You can click on create, and you can give the person name and contact information. So you can give the person name here, and you can give the contact number. These details you can provide, but not mandatory. If you want to create, you can create. But if you want to use the supplier in the system point of view, these 4 steps. One is profile creation. The second one is address creation. The third one is site creation. Site is nothing but, for address we are giving kind of short name that we are calling as a site. And ultimately the site need to be assigned to our business unit. So this is what we have to understand about supplier creation. One site can be assigned to multiple business units. Make a note. One supplier site you can assign to multiple business units. That is possible. One supplier can have multiple sites also. So save and close. We'll create multiple suppliers with the different reasons. For now, just make a note how to create the supplier. So we have a different concepts. To execute those concepts, again, we have to come back to this supplier creation page, and we'll create and we'll do some setups for existing suppliers, and we'll create new suppliers. We can get more exposure to this supplier definition in upcoming sessions. For now, just make a note. To create the supplier, first we have to create the supplier profile. Okay, supplier profile, then supplier address. For address, you give some name that you call as a site, and the site need to be assigned to business unit. When you create purchase orders, invoices, and payments in the system, we use site only. We don't use address. Already address we are linking with the site. We select supplier and we select site only. We don't select address. So that's how we follow this process in the system. So we are done with the supplier creation. Now let's see bank account creation. So when you talk about bank account, we have to create the bank account to make the payments. So if you want to create the bank account, first you have to create the bank, then create branch. Within the branch, you can have a bank account. The bank account also you have to assign to specific BU. Say you have a 10 BUs and you have a few bank accounts. Which bank account can be used by which business unit, you have to set in the system. So that's what we call as we assign bank account to business unit. One bank account you can assign to multiple business units also. There is a condition we will see when we create the bank account. Okay, first we'll create the bank, then branch and account. Let's see that. So go to our implementation project, or directly you can create the bank account from the search also, global search. Okay, let's do it from our implementation project. Search for manage banks. You can choose any task. Click on create and say create. The bank belongs to which country? Select country. Say the bank belongs to US. And select bank name. The bank name is, you can take HSBC or Citibank or JP Morgan, any account you can take. For our testing convenience, I am taking the bank name as digital bank. Okay, for everything, I am going to use prefix as a digital. And that's all. Like country and bank name, you can provide. Rest of information is optional. You can say save and close. Now with this bank, create branch. Select digital bank. Click on create branch. And you can provide the name. Say digital. You may give some city name and all when you create the branch, but here I am giving as a branch name as digital branch. You may give some Dallas branch or so-and-so branch and provide routing number. Okay, it's very important. You may see as a mandatory or optional, but provide this routing number. The routing number means the unique identification number for the branch, so that you can search in the Google and you can use that value. Okay, you can search in the Google and you can use that value. Say BOA Dallas routing number. So you choose any one of the bank, any city related number. So let's use this. There is a validation in the system. It will verify how many digits and what is the format of the number. System has a validation. Take some valid number only. Any one of the number you take, it doesn't matter. System is not going to check this routing number belongs to which bank branch and what branch you are creating. It won't validate. There is a validation within the field. Now you can say save and close. If you want to create address for this branch, you can create the address here. You can click on add and you can provide address, but not mandatory. Say save and close. Now against this branch, you can create the account. Click on done. From here also you can create the branch, but from this page itself already we created. Now go to bank accounts. Click on create. Do one thing. Better you can sign out and sign in. The reason is we completed these setups. We are not very sure whether those setups are synchronized or not. When you go to bank account creation page, it may display, may not display our legal entity. For that reason, the best thing what you can do is before you try to create your bank account, sign out and sign in. If already synchronization is completed and the changes are not reflected, it will reflect now. Okay, let's create bank account. Go to our implementation project. Search for bank accounts. The task name is manage bank accounts. Click on go to task icon. Here click on create. The bank account, whatever we are going to create, in which branch we are creating. Okay, in which branch you have a bank account, that branch you can select. Already branches belongs to bank. Our branch name is digital branch. Select. What is your bank account name? Say digital corporate account. Account number. What is your bank account number? You can enter the number. And you are going to maintain the bank account in which currency? Select currency. And who is the owner for the bank account? Your company. How your company can be represented in the system with registration? That is nothing but legal entity. Already we given access to this user to our legal entity through cash manager role. Now you can select your legal entity here. You try here, sometimes it doesn't display. If it is not displaying, don't worry, you have to wait for few more minutes. Okay, if it is not happening in the minutes, there is no other option for us. You may wait for a couple of hours. This is one time. It is opening. The reality, this is how it should come. It should allow us all the legal entities. Recently, they applied the patch. Sometimes it is not displaying any legal entity. Then you can follow this process and make a note. You don't take it as a mandatory. Okay, you try to create your bank account. If you are able to see your legal entity in this list, that is okay. If you are not able to see legal entity, complete this process. Complete these 3 steps. Okay, take in that. Sometimes it is displaying, sometimes it is not displaying. So that is the reason we did these setups, but by default, as per standard functionality, it should display. It should display the legal entities. What Oracle is doing is very frequently they keep updating the patches. When they apply the patch, because of some patch, it may have some kind of different behavior, how it should work, it may not work, or else that may be the intent of that patch, what Oracle applied, not to display the legal entity until unless you give the access. But now it is displaying, all legal entities displaying. So the setup what we did, it is really not required now. It is just behaving differently. Sometimes it is displaying, sometimes it is not displaying. What you can do is when you are practicing, so don't do this setup. Try to create your bank account. If your bank account is not displaying your legal entity, you complete these setups. Please make a note of this point. While you create the bank account, if you are not able to see the legal entity, complete these setups and wait for some time. Your legal entity will be displayed. If it is displaying directly, you ignore these setups. Don't do these setups. That's it. Select our legal entity. Select our legal entity. Digital US legal entity. Yeah. And this bank account, the corporate account, you are going to use in which applications in our system? Payables and receivables. In payables and receivables, we are going to use this bank account. In payables, to make the payments to suppliers. In receivables, to receive the payments from customer. You pay from this bank account. In receivables, when you get the payment from customer, you deposit that amounts into this account. The moment you select legal entity, system is taking these accounts: cash account, cash clearing account, reconciliation, difference accounts. So just make a note: cash account. For every bank account, we use separate cash account. Here it is taking one cash account because of the rapid implementation. It is taking Bank of America cash account, BA, Bank of America. Okay, or you will just take as some Barclays or whatever Bank of America account it is taking. And if you have a 10 bank accounts, we create 10 cash accounts and we select relevant cash account to relevant bank account. Cash clearing, you can use the same account for multiple bank accounts. Cash clearing for clearing purpose as per accounting. You can use the same clearing account for multiple bank accounts, but for each account, you have to maintain the separate cash account. This is what we have to notice. You no need to provide this account, system is taking. Now, you have to create documents, checks. When you have a bank account with a banker, you will get checkbooks. As an organization, you get bulk volume of checks. You will get stationery to print the checks. So that you can define here. Scroll little down, you could see payment documents. Under payment documents, you can click on create. Just click on create, you can create the payment document. There is some issue with this browser. So you can switch to Mozilla. The bank account creation, there is a browser compatibility issue. You try the same from Mozilla browser. Here you can close. Go to manage bank projects overview. Go to bank accounts. Already we created bank and branch. Directly go to bank accounts and click on go to task icon. Say create. So select your branch. Digital branch. The account name is digital corporate account. Account number. Currency USD. The legal entities. The digital US legal entity. System is defaulting these accounts. You enable account for payables and receivables. If you want to use the same bank account in the payroll to process employee salaries, you can enable so that this bank account will be visible from payroll application also. That is not required. Most of the companies use a separate separate bank accounts for payrolls. Now scroll little down, click on add. You can give the document number like digital check and paper stock type. When you get the checks as an organization, you get continuous stationery. You can insert in the printer from the system. When you print, automatically the payment will be printed through checks which are inserted in the printer. So what kind of stationery you are getting from the banker? So banker can provide checks with the check numbers, without check numbers also for the companies. Your company is getting what kind of stationery from the banker that you can select. Blank stock means everything you will print from your system only. Even check numbers you will print from system. And or else you are getting the checks from the banker with the check numbers, pre-printed stationery, check numbers. Then you can choose this. What is the reality you can select here. And printing purpose, when you print the check, when you print the payment from the system, exactly this information should be carried to the printer to print this information as per the check format, whatever you are inserting in the printer. For that purpose, technical team should create the check formats. They create the check related templates. I mentioned this as a separate topic. We will see. As of now, you can use the format which Oracle is providing. Okay, Oracle is providing the seeded format. Use it as a part of payables. We will learn where you can find this Oracle provided formats. What is the process need to be followed by technical and what we have to do, we will discuss. For now, you can select seeded format called as standard check format. Within this format only, they'll put all the alignments. Okay, they'll take the technical people, take the check measurements, height, width, pay to, amount, invoice, date, amount, everything. The alignments they take accordingly, they create the template. So based on the template, we need to create the format. This we will understand. The format for printing purpose, you take that name. How that formats can be created in the system. Before that, what technical team should do, those all like we will discuss, that I mentioned as one of the concept in the payables. If you see here, you have payment format. Here we will discuss and we'll see. As of now, you just select standard check format, which is serial, which Oracle is providing. Now what are the checks you received from the banker that you can enter in? Okay, we received checks from 1001 to 2000. Okay, these many checks, documents are nothing but checks here. You can enter. So if you make the payment, system will print the check with this number. So here, whenever you use 1001 as per your system, ensure you have a same check number in the printer also. Say okay. This is how just you have to create the payment document. Payment document is nothing but checks. Now this bank account we have to assign to our business unit. No business unit can access this bank account by default. You have to assign one bank account, you can assign to multiple business units. So as per enterprise structure, our business unit will be under what? Our business unit will be under what?
Under legal entity.
Legal entity.
Our business unit will be under legal entity, yes. Now, this bank account you can assign to multiple business units which are under same legal entity. Make a note of this point, under same legal entity. So because for this bank account, digital US legal entity is the owner. Under digital US legal entity, say you have total 4 bank accounts. Sorry, 4 business units. This bank account you can assign to those 4 business units, possible, because owner is same for 4 business units. Say you have LE1 and LE2. For LE1 you have one business unit, LE2 you have one business unit. LE1, LE2, BU1, BU2. Now you are creating the bank account with LE1. Can you assign this bank account to BU2?
No, we can't assign
Why?
because under same legal entity only we can assign. So BU2 comes under LE2.
Yes. So owner is different, means legal entity is different. One bank account you can assign to multiple business units if all the business units are under
Same legal entity.
same legal entity. This is what we have to understand here. You can assign one bank account to multiple BUs, but all should be under same legal entity. You cannot assign bank account to the BUs which are under different legal entity. That's it. Now go to business unit access tab, click on add. Click on add and select your BU. So it is taking the cash account and cash clearing account. From where it is taking this cash and cash clearing account? From here, right? From here it is taking. When you assign this bank account to your business unit, ensure that the balance and segment values are matching with your business unit or not. 1000, are you using the 1000 for same business unit? Yes, then keep as it is. For this business unit, if you are using 2000, you change the balance and segment values in the cash and cash clearing accounts. That's very important. Now you are going to assign this bank account to one more BU. For that BU, also it will take the same code combination, but you have to change from 1000 to 2000. For other BU, balance and segment value, if you are going to use 2000, you have to change it. This is a very important point. You should not accept as this. Just say okay. We assign this bank account to this business unit. Okay. So when we are working for this business unit in payables and receivables, you can access to this bank account. That's it. So save and close. So we created bank account. The bank account we assigned to business unit, and we provision the bank account can be used in the payables and receivables applications. Just click on that. Okay. So this is all about bank account. Right. If you want to make the payment process profile is mandatory. With the payment process profile, you can set the rules. Can we make the payment for specific currency or any currency? Can we make the payment for single business unit or any business unit? Can we make the payment with a single bank account or multiple bank accounts? These rules you can define with the payment process profile. If you want to make the payment as per which profile, see here, by looking at the name, you can understand payment. When you process the payment, okay, when you process the payment, what is the profile we are following? As per which profile we are going to process payment. Okay. As per which profile? Profile means here certain rules and conditions. As per which rules we are going to process the payments that you can define by using this payment process profile setup. It's very simple. We'll go see. So search for payment process profile. So manage payment process profiles. Click on this task. Click on go to task icon. Say create. Now, you can give the name as digital payment process profile. Provide the code digital payment process profile and select payment file format. You can select the same format whatever you selected in the bank account creation type. Check format. Select standard. Standard check format. And processing type you can select as a printed. We are going to print. Since check, we are going to print. Now here you can see the rules. Are we going to make the payment to any method of the payments by using this payment process profile, or else you want to use this payment process profile to process specific method of payments? You can choose. If you want to restrict to use this payment process profile to process the payments only check payments, you can select. If you are going to make the electronic payments, you cannot use this payment process profile. You are limiting. If you want to allow the system to use this payment process profile to process any method of payments, keep as all. If you want to allow the system to use this payment process profile with any bank account, disbursement bank account means our bank account which we are going to use to make the payments to suppliers. Can we use this payment process profile with any bank account? Yes, then keep all. Or else you want to limit this payment process profile to use when you make the payments by using our bank account only. Then select our bank account. So this payment process profile you cannot use for any other bank accounts to process the payment. You are limiting. This bank payment process profile can be used when you are making the payments from this bank account only. If you want to allow any bank account can use this payment process profile to make the payments, remove this, set all. In the same way, any BU or specific BU or any currency or specific currency, you can set all these rules and say save and close. This payment process profile you can use for any currency, any payment method, any business unit. Okay, all we set as an open criteria. Done. Now you can assign roles to users. So as a part of GL, we assign roles to user. To the GL roles, we assigned our primary ledger. Now we are talking about payables. So we need to assign payables roles to user. To payables roles, we have to assign our business unit. So GL, we have seen 5 roles Oracle is providing as seeded. In case of payables, Oracle is providing 3 seeded roles. Assign 3 seeded roles to GL AP application and assign our business unit to AP roles and submit LDAP. And however we open the periods for GL, in the same way you have to open the periods for AP, so that within the AP you can create invoices and you can process the payments And there are many concepts in the payables which we are going to learn, understand. We'll see one by one. Okay, so assign AP roles to AP user, which will allow the user to create invoices and payments. So the task name is security console. Directly go to security console task, tools, security console. Go to users. And here, find our user, digital. Click on edit, add role. So payable related roles we are going to assign. So accounts, payable manager. So accounts payable manager, assign this role, select, assign. Make a note for your reference. We assigned accounts payable manager role. Next role, accounts payable supervisor. Anyone you can choose, but always you prefer to go with ORA if available. Select, select and assign. Two roles we assign. The third and final role is specialist. Done. Save and close. Click on done. Now assign our business unit to these three roles. This digital user level, we have business unit. When we created digital as an employee user, we selected business unit. Based on that, you cannot have access to payables, receivables, other applications. Again, you have to assign. So this user need access to which business unit when this user is going to work on the payables, receivables application. But what is the use of the BU what you assigned at the time of employee user creation? Because of that BU, the user can create expense reports for that business unit. Okay, if employee is going to create expense reports, since the employees belongs to that BU, by default, that employee is allowed to create expense reports for that BU, which is mapped at that user level or say employee level. That's it. Now, so we just assign the roles. We have to assign BU. To assign the BU, you can go to task called as data access for users. Data access for users. Click on add. The username is digital. Select role. Accounts payable manager. Security contest is business unit. What is our business unit name? Digital US business unit. Click on add. Select our user. Select. Here manager already we selected. Now you can select specialist role. Security contest is we are going to assign business unit, the BU name. You can click on drop down, it will display and select. Click on add, select digital. Role is accounts payable supervisor. Select business unit. Same BU, and you can assign and say save and close, done, and submit LDAP job for synchronization.
Lakshman, one doubt.
Submit this
No
task.
need to assign reference data set to the user.
Why reference data set? What purpose?
Since we used payment terms.
We are assigning BU the payment term level, payment terms and all. What level we have?
BU level.
That's it,
Okay.
right?
Got it.
BU we are assigning means whatever we have at BU level, everything will be applicable. This user can access to everything which are mapped at that BU level.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
That's how it works. Yes. Fine. We submitted the synchronization process. It takes some time. Once the synchronization is done, you can open the AP periods. We have seen GL periods and we discussed about GL period statuses like open, future enterable, closed, permanently closed. The same is applicable for AP also. You have to open the AP periods, then system will allow you to create invoice and payment within the AP. So we assign the roles, we assign the BU, we submitted LDAP. These three roles we call as AP seeded roles. Sorry. So you can sign out and sign in. Mostly it will reflect the synchronized changes so that we can take to next step. Just sign out and sign in. Okay. So go to navigator. Within the navigator, you can see payables. Because of AP roles, whatever we assigned, you are able to see payables here, expand it. What is our target? Opening AP periods. Click on invoices task. If you click on invoices task, it will take us to one page. That page we call as invoice workbench. What we call as invoice workbench. Within this invoice workbench, you can create invoices and you can manage the invoices. Okay. So within the invoice workbench, you can create and manage the invoices. The same way for payments, we have a payment workbench. You can create the payments and you can manage the payment information. Now our target is opening the periods. Okay. To open the periods, click on this task list. Click on this task list. Here is the task called as manage accounting periods. Click on manage accounting periods. Click on this task. Click on manage accounting periods. Now, so here is our payables. We assigned primary ledger to our business unit. Periods we have in our primary ledger only. Now we have to open the periods from primary ledger for the BU for payables. Now here you can look for our primary ledger. Here is our primary ledger, digital US primary ledger. Place cursor on it, it will display. This primary ledger is assigned to how many business units? Only one. You may assign this primary ledger for 10 BUs. For 10 BUs, for payables, we can open the periods at a time. You cannot open the periods for each business unit separately. So for periods, the control is at primary ledger level. Say this primary ledger we assign to 10 business units. For 10 business units, you want to open the periods for payables. You cannot open one by one. If you open periods for payables application at your primary ledger level, automatically periods will open for 10 business units because the control is lying in the primary ledger. That's how it works. It is not like you go and select your business unit and you say open the period, like in GL primary ledger. No. For payables, receivables, and any other applications, the control works at primary ledger. Accordingly, you can open the periods. At a time, you open the periods for all the BUs. How many BUs are associated with the same primary ledger? This is a very, very important point to understand. The same is applicable to close the period also. You have 5 BUs. 5 BUs belongs to same primary ledger. The same primary ledger you assign to 5 BUs. So if you want to close the periods, at a time your system will close the periods for 5 BUs. If you are opening the period, at a time it will open the periods for 5 BUs because primary ledger is same for 5 BUs. This is the point we have to understand, which is very, very important. In any application, this is how it will work wherever you use the business unit concept. Now click on digital US business unit. Only one BU we have. You have to understand system is going to open periods for the only one BU for payables application. If you have 10 BUs, it will open for 10 BUs. Since 10 BUs are used in the same primary ledger. Very first period as per our accounting calendar is Jan 23. Open it. The period status is open. Now you can go to actions, select target period, open target period. You can select our current period. The current period is April. Open. Say yes and refresh to see the update. April period status is open. By default, next period is future enterable. We already discussed what is the purpose of this period statuses. Same, whatever we discussed in the AP, the same is applicable. Sorry, whatever we discussed in the GL, same applicable in AP also. Click on done. Now period is open. If you try to create invoice, okay, if you go to invoice creation page, if you try to create invoice, what system will do is, it will look at this user. For this user, already we assigned application implementation consultant role. Because of application implementation consultant role, this user can have access to all the BUs. But reality, for business users, we don't assign application implementation consultant role. If somebody is working for AP, you can assign 1 or 2 or 3, whatever how many roles required as per their kind of responsibility for payables department. You can assign the AP roles and you can assign the business unit. That's it. So that that user can have access to only that business unit. For this user also, we assigned only one business unit, but this user can have access to all the BUs. Reason is this user got access to application implementation consultant role. Because of that role, this user can have access to all the BUs. You can see all the BUs. This user is able to access to all the BUs. Reality, this user should be able to have access to only one BU. Which BU we assign to this user? Yes, that is possible if you don't assign application implementation consultant role to this user. Application implementation consultant role is already assigned. That is the reason, along with our BU, you are able to see everything. This is the point you have to notice. Okay, if you want to test this, create one user, assign only AP roles to that user and assign BU. Don't assign application implementation consultant role, so that you can see the only one BU which you assign to that user. So this is how you may test, but this is the point you have to understand. Okay, let system display all the BUs, no worries, because we given access to this user as a application implementation consultant role. But whenever I come to this use invoice creation page, it should display my BU here, so that I can create invoices for my business unit. If it is displaying all the BUs every time, I have to select, okay, to create invoices. I don't want to go in this way. So whenever I come to this page, system should display my BU here. Since you have access to many BUs because of application implementation consultant role, you want to default your BU. If you have access to only one BU, yes, only one BU, you can directly create invoice. But because of application implementation consultant role, you are able to access many. But let system display many, no problem. But whenever you come to this page, you want system to display your BU here. For that, you can set the profile option. For this user, you can set the profile option saying, if this user is going to create invoice or payment in the business unit field, it should display this BU only. That's how you can set the profile option. Okay, you can go and set the profile option so that system will display only this BU for this user as a default. If this user wants to change the business unit, possible. In the list of values in the drop down, you can find many BUs you can change, but one you want to default for this user. For that, you can set the profile option. If you want to set profile option through profile option, what we are going to do? We are going to set which BU should be displayed for this user in invoice creation or payment creation or in any page. Any page, even in the receivables also it would be applicable. We are not setting for payables or we are not setting for receivables. User level we are setting. When this user is going to create anything in any application, if business unit field is available, it will take the BU what you are going to set as default. To set the profile option, we have a task called as administrator profile values. You don't need to search for entire task. Search for profile value. It will display the relevant task. Here is the task name. Manage administrator profile values. The task name is manage administrator profile values. Click on this task. What we want to do, we want to set one default business unit for our user. So search for the profile option here. You have a field called as profile display name. Here give the name as default business unit. Okay. We searched many times and it's stored in the browser cache. That is the reason it's coming. Don't expect when you type default, it will come. You have to search. This is the exact name you have to give. Then click on search. So click on search, it will display the profile option. By using the profile option, you can set for which user, which business unit system has to display, you can set. Then whenever you are going to create invoice or payment or any kind of document or anything you are going to create in the system, if business unit field is applicable, it will take automatically. You don't need to do anything. Here is the profile option record. Profile display name is default business unit. Profile option code is default org ID. Org ID is nothing but BU ID. This is kind of some technical database point of view. There will be a field called as org ID in the tables. Org ID always refers BU name, BU ID. Org ID means BU ID. Now, here click on add. What we are going to do here, for which user, which business unit it has to display, wherever business unit field is applicable for this user. So that's what we want to set. To set that, we are going to select user and do business unit. And if you look at this, you have a profile level. You can set user level only. Certain profile options you can set different level, user level or entire instance level. But for this default business unit, you can set only user level. For which user, which business unit need to be displayed. When it is required, when the user is able to access to multiple business units, this is required. Make a note. Every user, you don't need to set this profile option. If any user is able to access more than one business unit, you may set one BU as a default. Now, current situation is we are able to access all the BUs. So we are setting one BU as a default. That's it. Now select username. Okay, select username. So you can just type our username as a digital. Search. Select and say OK. And select business unit name.
If we don't have implementation consultant, this is not required, right?
If you don't have implementation consultant role is assigned to this user, how many BUs you are assigning, that BU only you can access. Directly it will default. You cannot change also. Here is our BU. Select. Okay, this user is able to access to many BUs. Still this user will access, but system will default it. If you want to change, you can change. Just save and close. Click on done. It will take some time. Okay, it will take some time to update this. Whenever you go to invoice creation page, that BU will take automatically, but it takes couple of minutes time to update it. You go to this page. If you click on create invoice, it will display that BU here. Because already this user has access to the BUs, that BU, it will display here directly. Again, for which BUs the user has access, within those BUs only one you can set as a default. If user doesn't have access to so and so BU, even if you set as a default, it doesn't work. Okay, first the user should have access to the BU. So what are the list of BUs the user has access? Out of the list, we can set one as a default. This is what we have to understand. So we are ready with all the setups. In tomorrow's session, we will see how to create invoice, how to make the payment, and we'll go these concepts one by one. Okay, from tomorrow's session, we can start working on these concepts. Okay, how to create invoice. So many concepts are there. We'll start working on all this. Okay, we are done for today. If you have any questions, please stay back. We'll discuss. Thank you all.